Thanks,
So
Susan.
I'll just upload the file like Ray usually does.
Does that work for you, Ray?
Yeah, I just want to, whoever keeps the file, I just want to get a copy so I can put it on our YouTube channel for
Can do.
the contact team.
Can do.
That's what I've been doing with Anna.
Sounds good.
So I don't know when you want to start, Ray, or if we want to wait a few minutes for others. I don't know what you're thinking.
Yeah, I do want to see, we're expecting Krista and I think, and also Sophia Morales.
Sophia is here,
Oh, she is, okay.
but I don't see.
Yes, hi.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Here we go. Krista is now waiting. Here we go. So she's joining
Okay, and
now.
there is our first presenter. Amanda, I'm Ray Collins. I chair the team.
Hi, Amanda Brown. Nice to meet everybody.
I'll just continue. I'm David Foster,
There's
longtime
Krista,
Southwood resident.
okay.
I'm Susan Shorn. I'm the secretary, I think. Pretty sure.
I'm Kelly. I'm the president of the Southwood Neighborhood Association. Are these meetings open to everyone?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Public meetings.
Yes, they're public meetings. The voters have to be residents though.
Got it. This is my first contact team meeting. Happy to be here.
I'm Leah Bojo with Drenner Group, here to present the project on Stassney.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Krista Weatherford from Councilmember Ryan Alter's office. Met with y'all a few months ago. Happy to be here again.
Yeah.
And I'm Sophia. I'm with Councilmember Fuentes' office.
Thank you for coming.
So let's see. Well, David, I think I'll go ahead and call us to order, although this is a sort of a small meeting for us. My name is Ray Collins. I chair the South Menchaca Neighborhood Plan Contact Team. I'm calling this special call meeting of the contact team to order at 7:35 p.m. on April 30th. And we've already done the introductions. And our first presentation is by Mrs. Brown, having to do with the coffee shop that we're all looking forward to hearing about on Menchaca. And Mrs. Brown, if you will take
control. All right, let me share my screen. I have a short presentation. All right, can everybody see my screen? Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so this is a rezoning request. The property is located at 4507 Menchaca. So this is Menchaca here and Red Street. You can kind of see the property here outlined in yellow. Again, location map. Here's the school right across the street. So the existing zoning is LONP. And we are proposing to rezone the property to LRNP. similarly to the property zoned just to the north, except without the V component. I have the development standards here, so you can kind of see they're generally the same with some slight deviations for impervious cover and FAR. The purpose of the rezoning request is to allow for a hopeful coffee shop. The future land use, kind of hard to see, but we're located up here. We are in a neighborhood node. No future land use map amendment is required with this zoning application. I did want to talk a little bit about the transportation improvements along this site that will be coming with the redevelopment. I think probably the biggest improvement is going to be improved sidewalks along Menchaca. So currently I've got some pictures here. You can see there's a kind of substandard 4-foot sidewalk that runs pretty close to the road. When this site redevelops, they'll be required to have a 12-foot sidewalk zone that'll be built along the property line. That'll include a 5-foot new sidewalk, and that'll be buffered with a 7-foot sort of planting zone. And that'll be located between the sidewalk and the road. There's also currently 2 non-standard, probably illegal curb cuts that are on the property. So we'll be reducing that down to 1 curb cut as well. In addition to that, other than kind of explaining what mitigation requirements are, we don't really know exactly what they're going to look like. That'll kind of come later in the process. With the site planning process, which comes just after the rezoning. And mitigation is basically, in addition to impact fees that this project will have to pay, mitigation can be certain improvements needed in the area for pedestrian connectivity or pedestrian improvements or bike improvements, sort of more multimodal type of improvements. That's my short presentation, so I'm available for any questions that you may have.
I don't mind going first unless Ray has a plan. It's Ray's call. If he's still Ray, can you hear us?
Why don't you go ahead, David?
Okay. So I live literally right around the corner from this property and walk past it several times a week. 2 main concerns. I have nothing against a coffee shop. It'd be great, in fact, but I'm concerned about the trees. I'd like to hear what you're thinking of doing. It's very wooded. Most of those trees probably are too small to be protected. 1 or 2 though are, and it would be great. The other trees that seem smaller in diameter are on the edge of the property, the edges. It could probably be saved anyway. That's one concern. The other concern is what I've heard is the applicant wants a drive-through.
Yes.
I don't. And I think our neighborhood plan, I think that would conflict with our neighborhood plan, which calls for reducing driving and encouraging walking. And especially as I think Susan pointed out on email, it's right across from Joslin Elementary School. So the prospect of multiple cars entering and exiting right across, especially in the early morning or afternoon or getting out, just it's a safety issue. It's not safe. Plus, we also already have lots of opportunities to drive through. You can go to Austin Java towards Stassney and drive through there. There's a Joe's just beyond that, a little farther south. There's another drive-through coffee shop that's about to open on the north side of Ben White in Menchaca. And lots of people can and do pull into El Chilito's just north of you, grab a taco and a cup of coffee. And I'll add, and then I'll be quiet, that when El Chilito did what it did, it came to us as well, and we said, please no drive-through, and they accommodated us. So there you are. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll kind of take the trees first. Yes, there are some substantial trees on there. We do expect that there probably are some heritage trees that that will be protected. Because of the trees, our expectation is that it'll be a relatively small building. We won't be able to, build some large building. Any of the trees that do need to be removed, obviously any sort of heritage tree will be protected. We won't be pursuing any sort of path forward for removing those. And any other tree removals that do take place will have to be mitigated. Will have to be mitigated for elsewhere on the site. Again, we don't know the details of all of how that's going to work at this time. We're just not that far in the process. But yes, there are lots of trees, and we really view those as an amenity to the site and hope to highlight those trees as we move through the site planning process. The drive-through, yes. The drive-through, I understand what you're saying about drive-throughs and really wanting to have more focus on pedestrian connectivity. But I do think, again, we're only going to be able to have one curb cut. And that's all we want is one curb cut. But in addition to that, the city of Austin's not going to allow us to have more than one curb cut. We've already kind of started that conversation with that department. And so there's not going to be a huge flow of traffic coming in and out, as they will be restricted to just one curb cut. And I think in addition to that, the sidewalk improvements are going to greatly improve the pedestrian connectivity of that area, just by virtue of replacing the sidewalks along the frontage. As far as, again, regarding the cars, they'll all be restricted to one curb cut. So there's not going to be, one way out and one way in where cars are, continuously flowing. They will be restricted just by virtue of limiting to one curb cut.
Would you mind turning your screen share off while we talk?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
So my question is, if the people are going to be entering and exiting in the same place, and the traffic in that area between Ben White and, say, our land on Lansing, that's very heavy traffic. I mean, it's a parking lot, especially around school times, but even when it's not a school time, I'm having trouble picturing how that'll be feasible for people to get in and out, and how that would be attractive, how that would be appealing, how that would be an advantage if
For a coffee shop.
Yeah, for a coffee
Sure.
shop. If they can't get in, they can't get out, and half the time, why even have a drive-through?
I think one of the benefits that makes this site alluring for a coffee shop like this has to do with more pass-by traffic. And what I mean by that is this is not necessarily going to be a destination that's going to bring people from other parts of the town to come to this coffee shop. The idea is that it would be more people that are already using Menchaca going north, for example, would just pass by and use it. And so that's the expectation of where their customers are people that are already using Menchaca to get, from South Austin to downtown. And so it's not going to be a huge, big influx of new people. It'll really be to appeal to those who are already using Menchaca or dropping their kids off or something along those lines.
So the idea is that there won't be a line of people. It'll be one car at a time going in, getting their coffee and coming out. I just, with the traffic flow in that particular area,
Yeah, my question
I
is,
just don't see it.
I want to pick up from Elizabeth's question when you're
Sure.
done, Amanda.
Sure.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was going to let you answer her first, but
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yes, there's definitely issues that need to be worked out with the transportation department. Ultimately, they're gonna review the location of where our driveway can go, and it'll be placed in, according to whatever Austin Transportation Department determines to be the safest location for the driveway. In
Right.
addition to that, there's certain queuing requirements and things like that that we'll definitely have to work through. But again, the Transportation Department has already looked at this site, and we've already talked about it preliminarily to kind of understand what those requirements are going to be, and they feel comfortable about this development here.
Okay.
so you talked to transportation specifically about a drive-through at that location?
I did, yes.
Okay, because what I have a couple of concerns. One was related to Elizabeth's about just general traffic flow. Making a left turn from there is going to be extremely difficult and is going to block up traffic. And it's going to be during school hours when traffic's going 20 miles an hour.
Yeah.
People are going to be trying to, it's going to be really bad with pedestrians there too, both in the morning and in the afternoon. And my other concern is that if you have a popular spot at popular times, it doesn't matter if you only have one curb cut, because what's going to happen is people will back up in the street trying to get into the parking lot. It
Right.
happens at P. Terry's all the time at lunchtime.
Right.
And then you're
Right.
going to have, it's going to be 7:30. Everybody wants their coffee. They're going to have blocked up the traffic there. Meanwhile, there's kids trying to get along on that sidewalk, and there's cars stuck halfway on and off the sidewalk trying to get in and out. People trying to turn left. It just sounds like a real recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And because you were saying you weren't sure with the tree configuration how big of a building you were going to be able to put up, but a drive-through is going to take a lot of space. If you want more space for a coffee shop, seems like a drive-through would be a pretty easy thing to weed out of the design so that you could have more space for people. If you have cars idling around a drive-through around the building, people are not going to want to sit outside because of the fumes. So there's just a lot of reasons to me that make it, I'm partly this is about me as, someone who lives in the neighborhood and thinking about the impediments of having this business going on there. But part of this is I spend a lot of time in coffee shops, and I drink a lot of coffee, and I go to a lot of different places. I go to Dutchman's, and I go to Quack's, and I go to Starbucks, and I go to Joe's. And I'm not a connoisseur. I'm really a bottom feeder. I'll go anywhere, but I don't want to go to a place that is just all drive-through and that is difficult to get in and out of, or that it is unpleasant to sit outside, to sit there and drink coffee. So it just sounds, I love the idea of having it in the neighborhood, being able to walk to it, having some parking there. The idea of putting a drive-through in it makes me feel like I would never go there, because it's like the opposite of what I want as a coffee drinker and as a resident. So I'm curious to hear that transportation thought that this was swimming to put a drive-through with people making an unprotected left turn in front of a school when their peak business hours are going to be the same time that kindergartners are going to be coming along that sidewalk. But to me, it just sounds really unappealing as a business too.
Yeah, that's the. How wedded are the potential builder people, property people? How wedded are they to the idea of a drive-through? It doesn't make sense to me in that location, and I do think it's a safety factor. I just think people are going to get in there and they're going to get stuck because they can't get out, because there are other people, trying that are there and sticking out in the street. And so how wedded are they to the idea of a drive-through? I don't understand.
Well, the sticking out in the street, again, I doubt that this is going to be as popular as P. Terry's or Chick-fil-A. I know that they have some crazy lines, but it's illegal to do that. I mean, to be queuing into the road. And so if that is an issue that ends up happening, which I highly doubt that it will, we'll definitely have to address that with the city. But again, they have certain queuing requirements that will make sure that there's plenty of car storage basically for that to not occur. I mean, that's included on the sidewalk as well. The queuing spaces have to be far enough into the property where you're not impeding the sidewalk and you're not, encroaching into the right of way in any way. The driveway is an important component of this. They very much would like to have an option to have a driveway. Again, really because the traffic that is on Menchaca is kind of their customer. Somebody kind of going into work from South Austin to go to downtown or North Austin, to have that customer be able to do a drive-through coffee is an important component of the coffee shop.
Well, let me ask you this.
Sure.
Is there going to be seating places where it can sit, and how much seating is there going to be, and how much parking is there going to be for that?
As far as seating, we don't know yet. Again, I think that's going to have a little bit more of an impact on how big the building can be based on trees and the site. There is going to be seating. We heard from another neighbor, having concerns about people sitting outside, right? There's single family homes right on the other side, concerns about noise and people sitting outside from that. So we don't expect to have outdoor seating just based on that comment from the adjacent neighbor. But as far as seating, we're going to have it. There will be a pedestrian access from the sidewalk as well, with a nice crosswalk and a protected access to the building. As far as parking, I'm not exactly sure how many parking spaces. Again, that's typically based on the square footage of the building. But I can get back to you guys on that if they have an idea of kind of what the market would be for parking spaces for a site like this.
Yeah, because I'm thinking in lieu of having a drive-through, I'm not a coffee drinker, but my husband's an addict.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows every coffee town and, every coffee shop and miles around.
What's his favorite?
No, I can't discuss.
Is that top secret?
That's top secret. But
your coffee.
Would people not be? And let me ask the coffee drinkers: if you just pull in and park your car, go in and get a coffee to go, like Starbucks is. Does Starbucks always have a drive-through, or isn't there?
No, they don't all. No, not all. In more urban areas, they don't have drive-throughs at all. And I'll often, if there's a drive-through, I'll often go inside anyway because it's quicker.
Yeah.
Because everybody just sits in that driving line and just idles their engine, and you're sitting there running your air conditioning. So.
Well, that'll be an option too. There will be parking. It'll be available to people that do want to park and walk in, people that want to walk from the neighborhood to be able to go in. So there'll be lots of options.
Because the business owners want to have a good business. And with this drive-through, the better, supposedly the better business they have, the worse it's going to be because of the problems about getting through the drive-through and getting back on the street. And I know it's illegal to stick out in the street, and I know it's illegal to block a sidewalk. I think it's illegal. It's wrong. And there are children who walk to that school or down, will use those sidewalks to walk to that school. And if there's people pulling in, people. Some Austin drivers have known to be impatient, and if there are people pulling in that driveway and there are children walking there, I just don't think it's safe.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm guessing. I'm not 100% sure. Is this a school zone? Do you guys know?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's in the school zone. So traffic during that time is lowered to 20 miles per hour.
It's lowered to a parking lot.
Moving slowly.
Well, I mean,
I think about children walking on the current sidewalk as being, dangerous too, and having that sidewalk be improved, I think is going to be a huge amenity to any pedestrian along Menchaca.
But there's still
Yeah, larger
having-
sidewalks don't make the cars any smaller though. is the
Right,
problem.
right, yeah, and they don't make it, drivers see the children or see other pedestrians, um, you know, any better, just having a wider, and I'm, you know, a wider sidewalk would be good. It certainly would be an improvement. Sidewalks in this neighborhood are my absolute obsession.
Yeah, well,
And-
yeah, and I think, you know, just the wider sidewalk is good too, but having the sidewalk moved back off of Manchac by 7 feet, I think is going to be a substantial improvement as
Yeah,
well.
I agree with that. Absolutely. It's the business model that depends on a lot of car traffic pulling in and pulling out across that sidewalk. That's my concern.
Mhm.
So Kelly, you have a question.
Yes. I respect a business owner's right to build what they are allowed to build. But I will say our neighborhood is huge and really densely populated. And we don't have a lot of restaurants and coffee shops. And I think we're kind of starved for it. And the business that I think is the most vibrant in our area is radio. And radio doesn't have a drive-through. They have really nice trees and it's a really great
Yes.
atmosphere. It's bike friendly, you know, like they manage the parking situation. And I think putting in a drive-through is a missed opportunity to create something really cool like that, especially when it's a wooded lot to begin with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think, and to hear you say, oh, like that's not the target client, it's the commuters. It's like, well, when it's not commute time for a restaurant to be successful, you have to have people there. You have to create an environment where people just want to be. And I love radio and we go, but I will say that Ben White is a barrier. And sometimes I don't want to go because, oh, I don't want to cross Ben White, even though I live really close to it. So,
yeah,
you know, I just think I love the idea of another coffee shop or a place to go. And yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, thank you. Yeah, and we want to create a place like that everybody wants to be able to come and enjoy. I mean, that's our intent, and you know, doing that is gonna help us have more customers. I mean, y'all are our customers too, so we definitely want to be appealing to you. And I agree with you. Anytime anybody asks me to cross 35, I feel like they're asking me to go to Houston. I'm like, I can't. It's like half a mile away. I can't.
Ray, did you have
Uh,
something? Yeah.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to say that your client's vision of a coffee shop and what a coffee shop should be is quite opposite from mine. And I definitely do not want a driveway at this location under any circumstances. And I'm pretty sure I know this. You can see the sense of the contact team right now. And I would suggest that you start thinking about an alternate plan that really reflects what Kelly is talking about. And I, and have we talked enough about the driveway? Because I would like to say one other thing too.
it's a drive-through.
The drive-through, I'm guessing.
Drive-through.
Okay.
And that is that just that, you know, you're going here from zero. Yeah. My idea of a coffee shop is to sit around and enjoy my coffee. And I certainly don't want to be enjoying my coffee around a bunch of cars. This is a walk-up place as far as I'm concerned, just like radio is a lot of walk-up. And frankly, you're not presenting a neighborhood place that the neighborhood is going to support, I don't think. I mean, we haven't had a vote yet, so I can't really say that for assuredly. But you can see where people are right now, and I would suggest that you change your plan or see if you can talk your client into something else. And I have no idea what transportation can come up with, but I cannot imagine this being a safe place for to have a drive-through under any circumstances. both for traffic, both for pedestrians, both for children. And so is that enough about drive-throughs? Can I say something else about a different topic?
Yeah, please.
Has anybody mentioned the fact that we're going from, like I was saying, that we're going from 0% impervious cover to whatever?
70
No.
or 80. Yeah.
I know David
Okay.
wanted
I
to.
would really like to sit under the trees on some sort of a pervious cover of some kind and drink my coffee in peace, basically, which is not what you're describing, Mrs. Brown. That, and I like I say, I'll yield to whoever else has a comment now.
I just have one other comment real quick, which is this is on the 803 bus corridor, and that is going to be extended down Menchaca. So this is a core transit corridor, and it's city policy, I think, to encourage pedestrian activity, oriented activity, not automotive oriented activity along those corridors. Final point. Thank you.
Right. Well, that's a good point. I mean, we just talked about that in another context lately, and I can really see your pass-through stuff being people getting on and off the bus to have a cup of coffee.
We would love that.
But if I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, Mrs. Brown. I had a glitch there.
Sorry, I was just saying we would love that. I mean, I think if we can get people from a bus, people from the sidewalk, I mean, we really are about as multimodal as it gets, really trying to appeal to all of those types of people getting to this facility. So I think that would be great.
I will say that I think it's called Radio Coffee Shop, whatever it's called. They have been tremendously successful.
Oh yeah, it's a great place.
Yeah, and that's what I picture being tremendously successful on the location you're talking about.
Yeah.
The poor parents would probably bring the children with them to get coffee.
I have one more question about the mitigation that you mentioned.
Sure.
With the trees, that if there was mitigation requirements, I guess they were maybe associated with things other than the trees too. And you mentioned that there's the mitigation fees that you pay that can be used for improvements. My understanding is that when that money goes into a fund, the neighborhood has to actually request that it be spent on something specific. Is that kind of money that you're talking about?
That has not been my experience. I've seen mitigation money go towards things that staff requires during the review process. So that can be sidewalk improvements off of the property.
Okay, so these would be local to the project.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
More than likely. I mean, it could also be just request money. It really depends on what staff reviews for and decides is the most appropriate.
Okay, so we would need to verify with staff on that. Because we've had situations where sidewalk mitigation fees were paid and nobody ever requested the sidewalks and the developers got the money back. So we want to avoid that.
Like for the sidewalk that's on the subject track that was developed?
Yeah, they apparently for some residential streets, they have an option to, rather than put the sidewalk in, to pay a fee. So that I think the idea was so that the neighborhood then can request contiguous sidewalks rather than what we get, which is like a sidewalk for one lot. Just kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, let me make one quick clarification. The 12-foot sidewalk zone on this property will be built and will be required. We're not going to request a fee in lieu or to mitigation or anything for that. The mitigation is for potential improvements off-site. So if there's a sidewalk half a mile down the road that needs to be improved, that's what I'm talking about. But
Right, okay, so, and is
Yeah.
that a decision that city staff makes or that the neighborhood has to be involved in?
city staff typically makes it.
Okay.
I'm sure they would love your feedback though, to understand where the gaps are in your neighborhood and.
Yeah, we talked to them. The other question I have for you then is if this 12-foot sidewalk is basically gonna be just on the property, how will it be connected to the existing sidewalk? I could easily see it ending in another vacant lot or somebody's front yard. So how will it connect?
Yeah. Yes, it will connect. So sometimes when, like, let's say there's a 4-foot sidewalk that's 2 feet off of the road next door, we would have to somehow connect. We'd have to make it work like right at that location to connect. And then once the next site comes up for redevelopment, then they would pick up our 5-foot sidewalk and improve it from there on. But yeah, they will connect. The engineers will make it work. They always do. So that's required.
Is everybody had their questions? Any more questions?
What's your timeline?
We are obviously going through the rezoning process and kind of where we're at in that process is we're still in staff review. So we haven't been scheduled for any hearings yet. So we're probably still a few months out from there. After that, we will be going through a site planning process that'll probably take 9 to 12 months. And so you could probably expect construction 18 months out, something along those lines.
I have a question very briefly. What is it that you can do with this new zoning that you can't do with the current zone?
It's for the coffee shop use.
But I mean, could you build a coffee shop right there now?
It's got, so under the current zoning, the coffee shop has certain restrictions. And going to LR allows for a alleviation of some of those restrictions. And I can't recall off the top of my head exactly what those are, but I can get back to you.
Okay, I was just curious in terms of whether we support the rezoning. I'm not at all clear what we're supporting.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about our neighborhood vision, but I'm not clear why the current owners can't already build a coffee shop there now.
Yeah.
With the zoning that they have.
Yeah, it's restricted for restaurant limited is sort of what the restaurant is. We need the LR, one of which is to be able to do the drive-through, and then I think there's certain square footage requirements.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Elizabeth. That's something I hadn't thought to ask myself. So basically you're saying that you could build a coffee shop there, but you couldn't build a drive-through there at this point.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Other questions? All righty. Well, thank you very much, Amanda, and for your presentation.
Absolutely.
And we will keep in touch. Just keep in touch with me through my email, and of course I'll get the notices. And at some point, you can sort of guess how the vote's going to go. I think by now, but I will not proceed. You know, being the chair, I'm not going to talk too much in advance of the vote.
Okay.
And so if all is ready, then we will go on to our next presentation, which is by Mrs. Bojo.
Thank you guys so much for your
West
time. It
Stassney.
was nice to meet y'all. And again, please reach out if y'all have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all. I'm Leah.
Bye-bye.
Introduced at the beginning. Hi, Amanda.
Hi, guys.
And I also have a presentation. I'll try to go quick. I know, I'm sure y'all have other things to talk about as well, but just to give you a quick, as I'm pulling it up, just to give you a quick sort of context. This is a project where, sorry, I'm looking for the share button. Do I have a share button? This is a project where we got oh, here it is. I'm sorry about that. Where we started we had V zoning already, and we thought we had the 90 feet of height. I'm sure y'all are familiar with that, with the VMU2 and then the lawsuit and all of that. So we started and actually have a site plan in review and almost through review when it came about that we have to rezone to get the height that we thought we had when they started the project and started the site. I know. So it's been a little bit of a hustle to try to get this through. The good news is I have a lot of times when we go through, as you just saw, like with Amanda's case, like we don't usually have a lot of details because usually you do the zoning first and then you come back in with the site plan later. The good news here is I think even if I can't answer things off the top of my head, I should be able to get you answers to any kinds of questions you have because our site plan is so far along. But I just wanted to kind of set that up for you. So that's kind of why we are in the situation that we're in. So as I discussed, we're talking about 1500 West Stassney. I think the address is actually 1408 and 1500, but the project is called 1500. And here's just kind of a zoomed out view to make sure we all know what we're talking about here on Stassney, just east of the tracks there, the old tracks and trail. You can see the bus stops here as well. It's a great access. It's a great location for transit access. Here zoomed in a bit, you can see, I'm sure y'all are familiar. This is a site with some old warehouses on it. We would be, of course, demolishing and replacing those with this new development, the new residential development. Here's just some bullets about the site. It's just over 2 acres. I'm happy to share this presentation with you, and I'm done as well if you would like. It has buildings on it, but none of them are in use right now, so that's why we have vacant there. And then, like I said, we are on an ASMP transit priority network. We are on an Imagine Austin corridor, and it has some pretty great Cat Metro weekday high frequency service, as well as some urban trails that are planned and buffered bike lanes that are planned. So here's what the project looks like as it is currently submitted. We're talking about 187 residential units for rent units. As you know, I think there's an affordability requirement that comes with what was VMU2 and what's now DB90, that you choose between either 10% of the units at 50% MFI or 12% of the units at 60% MFI. I put both of those on there because our client has not yet decided which of those two they will be participating in, but they have to, in order to get their site plan, they have to do one of those. So a little more or a little bit fewer units, but at a deeper level of affordability. It will also have a commercial ground floor use. We don't have a tenant yet, but we're building a commercial use for the first floor. The height that comes with DB90 is 90. The site plan that's in actually only goes to about 70 feet, so we don't need the whole 90. And you know, the site plan is in and in review, and like I said, almost done. So you can count on that number. We're providing 229 car parking spaces, 40 bicycle parking spaces, and I'm glad we put this tree information on here because it sounds like that's an important point for y'all. There are 3 heritage trees on the site, healthy heritage trees that will remain in place. There are about 25 protected trees that we will also be keeping. We'll also be planting 19 new shade trees and 11 new ornamental trees as our tree mitigation for clearing some of the other smaller trees out. So here is a zoning map and a future land use map. So, and I'll show you a little bit more close up in a minute, but this site today has this kind of mix of zoning categories that was done quite a long time ago, I think maybe even in the 70s, maybe in the 80s. So we would be asking to rezone it, to rezone it to consistently be CS, MUV, DB90, NP. And then the future land use map amendment would be from neighborhood node to mixed use activity hub corridor. So this is what I just wanted to, it doesn't really matter, but I just thought you might want to see. So for some reason, when this was zoned or way back, the majority of the site is CSV, but then it has this little strip of LRNP, and it has this little strip of MF3, and then this part is GRVMU or GRVNP. So I'm not sure what the configuration was when somebody came up with this, but we're just asking to make it all consistent, you know, all the same across the site. So here are some renderings to give you a bit of an idea. They're not amazing, but I know it's nice when we have them just to be able to see pictures of what it would look like on the site in the area. And then we did, of course, look at your neighborhood plan, and we see new buildings with mixed use and pedestrian oriented ground floors, which we are building, and then also encouraging affordable housing near schools, which we will have an affordability component in addition to just having more housing in the area. And then, of course, Imagine Austin talks a lot about also mixed use and infill opportunities to maximize walking, bicycling, and transit. This is a great spot for that, particularly with the transit and the trails. And with that, I would love to try to answer your questions. And if I can't answer anything now, I will certainly get back to you. Where we are in our timeline is we are in staff review. We have our code required community meeting on May 13th, Monday. That's the meeting that the city hosts. Will be there, of course, making a similar presentation. And then we do not yet have a scheduled date for planning commission or city council, but the expected timeline for all of these cases that are in this situation where they had a site plan and review and then the zoning change is my understanding is that they're planning to go to commission in May or June, probably June at this point, so that we can go to city council in July, so that we can basically clear the final comment on the site plan and then have the site plan be released and move forward with the development. Is there anything I can answer for y'all?
Yes, I will start. And I know David has some comments too, because we've already talked about this.
Okay.
But so back in January 2019, I became very familiar with this site because previous owner, I filed a code violation that had in part to do with drainage onto the lots behind the well, I mean, the MF have two lots, but it's single family homes.
Yes.
And so we're very aware of the slope from Stassney down to the residence home behind.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely that drainage needs to be mitigated.
Yep.
And what we
He's freezing for me. I don't know about the rest.
Yeah,
I was
there's a
wondering the
problem
same.
with Ray's audio. I can hear him in there in their living room talking,
No.
but he's not.
Can't hear you, Ray.
Needs to come in and sit by your computer.
I know Ray was having internet problems earlier this
Right.
week. He was without internet for 2 days, and I noticed Elizabeth has dropped off. I think they're on the same network.
Yeah,
So
we had a power outage, huge tree dropped.
Oh, you're still there? I thought you were gone.
Yeah, no, I guess I could go in the living room and maybe you could hear him from my Zoom feed. I usually avoid that because it makes an echo.
Yeah.
Does he know that we can't hear him? Or is he still
Apparently he doesn't. I'll go tell him.
Find out if he can hear us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think he's talking. I can hear him talking.
Oh, no.
So
Gonna have
I'll
to
go
say it all
let him
over
know,
again.
and maybe he can use my Zoom.
That would work just fine, yeah.
He has such a hearing problem that I think he tries to listen with the earphones. But
Mhm.
I'll sit my Zoom right next to him.
Okay.
Just a second. I'm on my way. Just
No
Ray,
rush.
Thank
they're
you.
not- they-
We
Ray,
appreciate
they- Ray, they can't.
I know.
But here, see
But-
if you can use talk with mine.
Okay,
Okay.
just a sec, I'm back online. All righty, so I'm back.
They can't hear you.
So go ahead, David.
Well, really the same question. It's I did walk the site not long ago, and there is quite a slope
Yes.
from the south to the north into those single family homes. So one question is, what do you intend to do about mitigating or managing that stormwater runoff where there's none right now? And a related question is, as I understand the new compatibility standards, and I'm not completely clear on whether this has to comply with those or something else under DB 90. Will you be planting the trees to buffer? This is a requirement with the new compatibility standards that are likely to be approved
Yes.
in about 3 weeks.
Yes.
You have to have trees of a certain height or more numerous shrubs of a certain height. So I'm curious about that. Curious about the parking. How many floors of parking are you going to have? Structured parking, I guess. I'll just let you speak to those points if you want, and then
Sure.
I'll just continue.
So the drainage situation, I'll start with that one. So as I'm sure is not hard to imagine, that site today was built before there were any drainage requirements. And so the water is just flowing from the street across the site and wherever it goes, and there's not even an attempt to contain it. That happens a lot with old sites like that. I've been out there too. I know exactly what you're talking about with the site and the slope. So with this site plan, one of the really good things that comes is full stormwater retention. We have to take all the water and keep it on our site. We cannot have more water come off the site than we are. I'm not saying that right. We have to take care of all the stormwater that flows across our site. So I can find out more of the details from our civil engineer, but I can tell you that there's no question in my mind that flooding is happening today because of what's out there, and that it will be greatly improved when there is a development there with a stormwater detention system as required by code, which we will certainly have.
Are you thinking green stormwater infrastructure, or what's it going to be? Just
I don't know, but I can find out. I mean, we have that answer. I just don't know it. So I'm happy to track that down, and I'll send a list of answers for things. If it's okay, I'll send it out to Ray, and maybe he can distribute it, or I can send it to everybody individually, however y'all like. The vegetative buffer, I also don't know. I apologize. I do know exactly what you're talking about with the new compatibility rules. I just don't know what they're planning on doing back there. DB 90 does come with its own compatibility, as I think you probably know. So obviously they would be complying with that. But I don't know I don't know if that's the same buffer as what's in the proposed citywide compatibility or not. So I can certainly find that out, and find out also just what kind of space is back there.
Well, yeah, if you need to capture stormwater, presumably at the back.
Yeah, I
that's
would
a
presume
buffer.
as well.
You know, so if it were slanted the other way, maybe under DB 90, you could go farther back, but I don't know that you could both manage stormwater and go farther back.
And
Yeah.
then
The stormwater,
what
I
I
know,
would
I'm
like
pretty
to
sure.
know also
Yeah.
is how. Yeah. Sorry, David.
No, I'm done. I'm waiting for you.
Okay. I would like to know, just 1 second. I've got a feedback off of your machine.
Okay.
My wife is sitting next to me, and she's going to need to move.
Or
Okay.
Elizabeth, if you just mute
Yes.
yours, it might
But
work,
anyway.
might solve the problem. I mean,
Well, he doesn't want, he I offered to do that, but he said no. So
Got it, got it, got it.
yeah.
You'll have it worked out.
How far, what's the setback from the drainage?
Hey, I can't hear Ray.
Hear you again.
You're muted.
Oh, that's right.
So I got back
There
on
you
mute
go.
here somehow.
There we
Now I'm back. What I was wanting to know is, what is the setback from a drainage easement at the back of the property? And then that would be in addition to whatever compatibility rules. What I'm interested in, I'm basically expressing what I'm sure you've heard before is the neighborhood's desire not to have tall buildings next to their single family residences, which doesn't fit with the new compatibility rules, I know. But in terms of doing the best we can in this situation as a contact team, what I'm interested in is the drainage easement at the rear of the property and how far your building has to be from that drainage easement and how far all that is from the property line.
So I can certainly find that out for you from the back property line. Generally speaking, a drainage easement can be within a setback, but I can find out how that all lays out and kind of an aerial view of that for you. I'm happy to track that down. And also that would relate to that vegetation question also that David asked. I know there was a question about parking.
Yeah. Are you looking at structured parking?
Yes.
How many stories are you giving over to parking or
I
whatever?
believe it's one underground and one at grade behind the commercial.
So it's in the back.
Yes. It's all structured and it's in the back.
This is a stick frame building, I guess.
It's stick on a podium.
On a podium, so a concrete podium and then 5 stories of stick frame above that. Okay.
That's right.
Wait, I missed how the parking is gonna work. The parking is gonna be around back?
So it's one level of parking underground and one at grade.
Okay.
And that's the cement podium. And then the stick is on top. So it's 5 stories above, but the parking will be entirely structured and it will be entirely, shielded and wrapped.
So, but two levels of parking.
2 levels of parking. Yes, ma'am. And I apologize, David. I don't know if there was another question in there, but.
Well, I have others, but I want to hear other people.
Okay.
I'm guessing that one level of underground parking has something to do with the drainage mitigation because they've got to solve their own drainage problem if they have cars underground to a level that's going to be. They're going to have to solve that problem, or they're going to have.
They have to do drainage, whatever kind of parking they have to do. That's this code requires that they handle their own stormwater. I can find out. I don't know if the drainage pond is under the garage. That's not uncommon. I just need to find out. Like I said, the good news is we have a site plan, so I can definitely get answers to all these things. I just don't know them off the top of my head.
Go ahead again, David, I think, unless somebody else has a question.
Yeah, I noted that on your list of bullets at the beginning, you mentioned a trail along the UP line.
Yes.
As far as I know, that's not in the plan at this point. I wish it were, but I thought they took it out.
Oh, really?
I think so, and that pains me to say that, but
I did not know that. We found that.
yeah,
in,
you might
in
want
one
to
of the
check
plans.
that. I'd love for it to happen.
Okay.
And then, assuming that we can someday make it happen, I haven't really thought this through, but you've got Emerald Forest to the east of you and potential trail on Union Pacific. And so whatever you can do I did note you've got lots of bike parking planned to plan for the future so you can accommodate maybe even an easement through the property. Maybe it's at the back where someone could ride from the UP to Emerald Forest behind. I realize you're just one of the dominoes that would need to fall for this to happen. But in the history of trail and bike planning in the city, once we get these things even piece by piece in a plan, then it makes it likelier that it eventually will happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, let me look into that. Like I said, we found that trail in a plan. I can check and see what the status is, what we find out about it. We can ask staff. There are also buffered bike lanes. I know they're not amazing,
Yes,
but
yes.
there are buffered bike lanes also planned for that area. So it does seem like there's a lot of good stuff coming. And we will have the standard streetscape as well, similar to what the other project mentioned with this planting zone, furniture zone, wide sidewalks, all that. So it'll be, it'll just be this piece, but it'll be a big improvement from what it looks like today, for sure, both from a drainage and from a connectivity perspective.
And given that those properties behind you are MF2,
right,
they'll be redeveloped at some point. And there might be an opportunity for an easement that connects that part of the neighborhood to your development and to Stassney.
Like a
So
connection.
you're able to walk, more efficiently to Crockett High or ACC if you're in the neighborhood.
Yes.
There's something else to ponder. An opportunity for that sort of access built into your plan.
Other questions?
My question was going to be about parking, and that got answered, so I don't have any other questions.
Alrighty. Well, Lee, obviously we've got a lot of unanswered questions here. And so if you would just address those to me at the address that you already have, I will distribute those amongst the officers and amongst the other members of the contact team.
Sounds great.
Can I make a sweeping general comment?
Sure.
This is about our neighborhood plan, and which I and others in the neighborhood worked many long hours on, and it's a really progressive plan. It's not a NIMBYist plan at all. We wanted mixed use and density at the major intersections, the activity hubs, I guess, and then the less density in the neighborhood node. And then we also had in the plan, written down how many stories maximum these different character districts, as they're called, could be. And the activity hub was capped at 5. And the neighborhood node at 3 stories. So it's just an observation. I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest, this development here, but you're asking really for 2 things. You're asking to go to no longer have this a neighborhood node, but an activity hub.
That's right. We're asking because of the request for the change to the zoning, it triggers the change to the node.
Correct. Yeah. So you're asking for that, which in our original plan was at the major intersections, not sort of between them. The other thing you're asking for is more height in an activity hub from 5 to 7 stories. And I think it's 7 stories. Is that right? Or is it 6?
6.
Okay. Well, that's not such a big deal. And I just offer that as an observation. And it's kind of where we are as a city. This city council is, gung-ho about density and height and so on. So it's just an observation.
Sure.
And nothing has happened in the plan. That's frustrating. It was a great plan and nothing happened. Maybe it's because the compatibility standards were too stringent. I don't know. So part of me says, hurrah, finally something is happening. But I also know, it's happening on a bigger scale than we said we wanted 10 years ago.
Sure.
End of comment.
Okay. Alrighty. Any further questions? Alrighty. Thank you, Lee, for your presentation. And if you would get back to us with some answers, we can make a better decision.
You sure will. That sounds great. And if you have any other questions that you think of after I'm gone, you'll know where to find me. I appreciate your time.
Right.
Good night.
Yeah. And that for the contact team, if y'all would I'll be the conduit here. If y'all will, if you have any other questions come up, if you will just send them to me, I'll forward them to Lee and we'll keep them all together in one place that way. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So Ray, you may have already, I was just going to say, you may have already thought of this and be about to say it, but can we give Krista and Sophia a chance to ask a question or comment if they want to? I don't want the reps.
Yes, excuse me. I should have thought of that. Thank you very much. Well, Sophia, we just finished talking about District 2. You want to go first if you have a question?
Sure. No questions. I think I'll I'll connect with Leah afterward and just make sure that she sends information over that she didn't have for today. But I think I just appreciate being able to join you and to listen in. It's kind of a strange case. This is not generally the contact team meeting that I attend, but it just happens to lie in District 2. So yeah, just appreciate being able to hear everyone's comments.
Alrighty.
I was gonna add, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
did
was
you say?
just going to add that from my experience, Amanda's been really responsive to talking neighbors one-on-one about their concerns. So if y'all have continued concerns or questions for information, if you don't have your contact information, I'm happy to connect you, but I would just recommend reaching out to her directly because in my experience, she's been responsive. But I don't have any questions about the project.
Alrighty, we're going to go on to another District 5 thing here for a minute. If into the 44 onto the Merle Street thing. And Krista, I understand that you've been talking to Rika Keepers about the zoning that they want there.
Yes.
And I'll speak for myself. I'm extremely puzzled by what the applicant has in mind, and basically because what the applicant is doing is renovating a burned out house, which is what he said under sworn testimony that he was going to do to the Buildings and Standards Commission. So that part is good. But what in the heck is he planning? Why in the heck is he asking for this GRV or GR mixed use that I've heard about from Nancy Estrada in this case? Do you have any clue that you can give us? I mean, I don't know how puzzled the rest of the contact team is, but I'm extremely puzzled.
Yes, so I actually went toward the property in person, which is interesting. Probably one of the rougher places I visited in the course of this job. My understanding from discussing with the applicant is that he's wanting to turn this into a cafe, similar to Amanda's project, but not quite to the scale that hers is, not thinking a drive-through. I know that there are limitations with kind of the existing neighborhood commercial zoning and like the limited office zoning that Amanda has and being able to build out kind of a restaurant or a cafe. I've also talked with Rika and the applicant, and they've indicated to me that he's comfortable signing a restricted covenant, since I know that y'all have had concerns in the past about either the property being sold to a new owner with the, heightened zoning, or with, the developer himself changing his mind and doing some of those kind of bigger projects. So I've still been going back and forth with Rika kind of about what zoning would be needed for the property. But my understanding from the applicant is that he wants it to be a cafe.
Are you hearing any rumblings of redeveloping the Southwood Mall as a whole? I know it's a big question, but
I have not.
Okay, dang it.
So I'll pause for other questions from the contact team.
So he's still asking for a change in zoning, right?
Yes.
That was my question. This is the same thing we just got with the other coffee shop people. To do a coffee shop or cafe, I don't think he actually needs a change in zoning.
Right. Yeah, I don't get it.
So I had the same question. I think the current zoning that he has, I don't know if y'all have it and you could tell me.
It's LO.
LO. Okay, so the same restrictions. Rika was under the understanding that you couldn't have cafe and that as a use at all. I've noticed some kind of discrepancies from city staff on what is or isn't allowed as a use. So I've asked them to clarify that so I can send that information to Rika. In that case, I would imagine he could do it as a cafe under that existing zoning. So that's something I'm happy to get clarification on. And then let y'all know that information as well, so you have it. But it is also fully possible that he needs the heightened zoning to be able to accomplish it's cafe use, but it's limited. And so depending on the project scope, he may need a broader zoning category.
How does this all fit in with the fact, though, that he's renovating his mother's property? I mean, just like, how do these other plans fit in with that anyway?
It looks like it's just going to be a single family dwelling, right? The way it's being renovated.
Yeah,
Currently, it's a
yes.
single family home.
Yeah, and he's renovating it to be a single family home, right?
So from the last time I toured the property, that's been on hold since it was the fire occurred. The applicant's currently waiting on the insurance payout for that damage, and then his plan is to redevelop it. I guess I don't even want to say the word redevelop, but renovate it into a cafe space. I think that the applicant's intent, I don't want to speak for the applicant. I know he's also happy to talk with y'all. But I think with kind of that site of being at the end of Merle, close to Ben White, having some kind of neighborhood commercial hangout space that could really serve as an asset to the neighborhood, have more eyes on the street, have more people in the area, since there have been, crime and vandalism issues on that street.
Okay. Questions?
Well, I guess unless I don't see the need to support rezoning, and I just don't see the need for the property to be rezoned according to what he says he's going to do with it. That's my main question.
That's something I can get clarification on from our zoning officer and send that information to y'all so you have it.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, if you would just communicate with me and I'll pass it along.
Yes.
Any other questions for Krista about what's been going on? Because I mean, we're very well. Let me say that Mr. Sett made a very poor impression upon the contact team, particularly as far as his credibility. And I don't think that's changed, but the only thing that has changed since that is that he does seem to be following through with what he swore under sworn testimony to the Building and Standards Commission about turning his former family home that his mother owns into a rental again. Basically a single family rental is what he's had in mind, what he actually said. And we're still wondering about Mr. Sett's credibility a lot, from our meeting quite some time ago. What was that? That was August of last year, I think. If I may not too great on elapsed time in this case, but that might be right. So I'm going to pause there, and if you would come back, and we will consider what you have to add to the conversation when you come back with more info. Do you have any idea what's going to be happening on the 28th? Is there going to be another postponement, or are we going to have to be ready to present something to the Planning Commission?
I am not sure about Planning Commission. I know I talked to Rika today and she said she was going to reach out about the neighborhood meeting. I don't follow planning commission quite as closely, so I can also reach back out to her tomorrow and ask if there's anything I need to let y'all know or update you on. But I
Yeah.
don't think they're quite there yet.
Okay. So we're likely looking at another postponement is what you think might happen, right?
Yes, I don't want to say that for sure because I'm just not sure, but that sounds
Well,
correct.
yeah,
That sounds more
I
likely.
understand. And I will probably hear from Nancy Estrada again too on that, just for the
Mhm.
from the people. So I would like for you to stick around just for a minute, Krista, for an announcement. But first, before that,
Sure.
I want to ask if there's any future agenda items that anybody wants to talk about. Okay, and then let's go on to an announcement. And if anybody has an announcement, I have an announcement, but I will let other people go first if they want to make an announcement. All righty. So I have an announcement that I would really appreciate if you would bring to one of your staff meetings there in D5. And it is, I'm on an Austin energy circuit, which originates where Williams Creek goes under Menchaca and extends east to about 108 Austin Energy customers. And I brought to the attention of your office back on February 16th, 2023, after about 3 trees fell on the properties, on the power lines in the creek behind us within a 6-month period, about the need of those trees to be trimmed. And so, well, they were trimmed. In case you weren't aware of what's been happening here. And all of us along those 108 people are once again without power. And this time it was for 2 days. Other times it's been as low as 4 hours. We sort of had an ad hoc street meeting when in front of our houses, and we're not happy campers with the constituent services of D5, considering that this has been brought to their attention. And I realize that it may be moot. I can tell you that I would suggest that somebody have a personal look at what it looks like down in the creek now, because I can tell you they have hauled away one hell of a lot of wood, and they spent over 24 hours, even all into the night, of cutting down there from trees that had been uprooted and such. If you would take that message to your next staff meeting, I would appreciate it. And the only other thing I would say is that one reason I recommend that you look at it personally is way back in February 23, y'all did respond with a message that from Austin Energy, but the message had nothing to do with what had actually happened. What had actually happened was a tree had fallen on the line, and the message had to do with something that they probably did at the substation, and it was totally irrelevant to what was going on as far as we were concerned. So this particular circuit has been a problem, at least in my estimation, since 2011, just to give you the history of it. And so if you would just bring all this up again, since I have been totally unsuccessful since my time in February of 2023, I've been totally unsuccessful in getting anything done about this. And even if it is moot now, I'd like to
Mhm.
know that somebody has actually looked at it and maybe it
Yes.
doesn't need any more trimming at this point.
Yeah,
I'll
I
make
don't,
sure. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna say, I don't think it's moot at all. I think these particular trees that fell, and we've lived in this house since 1994. And we didn't have these kind of power outages back in that time, is because they were regularly trimming the limbs back from the power lines. And then the city quit doing that on a regular basis. And I commend Austin Energy for the work they did. They worked down there with chainsaws till midnight, you know, but this kind of just emergency reaction and having to have people lose power and having Austin Energy have to pay a bunch of overtime, everything. It's just, it's not a good way to do business. It's not the way the city should be in their business. They should be regularly trimming those back. So when a storm comes through, there aren't limbs right on the power lines to fall over on them. So, you know, I want to say that it's going to be, from our experience for the last few years, it's been an emergency situation repeatedly, and I hope they can move from being on this kind of emergency reactive basis to doing preventive routine maintenance.
Yeah, and as far as I did want to say one other thing. We're about to find out, since there's another storm coming tomorrow, accordingly. We're about to find out whether this is a moot situation or not. If we have another another power outage due to trees falling on the line, it may not be moot at all, even now.
No, it's not. The situation's not correct.
And thank you, everybody, for bearing with me on this sort of personal privilege on this announcement.
We
But
had no power
for
we lost power for a week in February because of tree branches too. But I have a husband who's continuously planting trees right under the power line. So I'm in no position to complain. Really, I'm part of the problem. Sorry.
Well, we do love trees,
Yeah.
so I understand.
Well,
Yes,
we trim trees on our property. You know, we trim back branches. We trim. We lost 2 red oak trees because of the drought and the freezes and everything. We had those cut down. We paid, for those to be cut down, so those didn't get blown over in the storm, because we've done preventive maintenance on our property, but we can't. The preventive maintenance needs to be done on Williamson Creek.
Well, right. Yeah. The creek is a huge issue for y'all.
Yeah.
So if the creek is an issue as well as the trees, because I can talk to Watershed as well.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's why they actually went in to get the trees, was because watershed wastewater will go in if there's a possibility that fallen stuff will cause flooding.
Yes,
so they'll go in and get it out when they would do more limited trimming probably just for the power, but they go in and pull out a lot if it's a flooding issue.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
but they've been out there recently, so y'all, this is more of a let's be proactive. But as far as the recent storm, y'all are okay now?
Well, after 2.5 days of this heat, we're not at our age, just the option of let's just go to a motel is not a feasible option for us. I have a CPAC machine. It's a major situation if we have to try to vacate our house and go someplace.
Yeah, y'all shouldn't have to do that.
Right.
I will contact Austin Energy tomorrow and make sure that they're aware of the issue and that they're addressing it. Again, sorry that y'all are experiencing this. Also, just kind of speaking from a macro policy perspective, I know following the winter storm last year, Councilmember Alter directed staff to look at, burying power lines and, ways to be proactive about this in the future. But also, as far as the tree issue, we recently just passed an item to have the city do a tree inventory which should hopefully get us to a place where they're doing more proactive planning because they'll get a sense of which trees are vulnerable to, falling during storms.
Right.
And they should be able to address this stuff versus, waiting for a disaster to happen and then addressing it after the fact. So
Yes,
we're certainly aware of the issue and working on it.
These are
It'd be
public,
more
right?
cost effective to do the normal preventive work.
Krista, the inventory that you guys did, thank you for taking the lead on that. They're on public right away, right?
Yes.
It's not a complete inventory of every tree in town or not on
Although
private.
it could become that.
Yeah.
Staff would have the discretion to be able to do private trees as well. I think they're just prioritizing public.
All righty. Anybody else have anything else they would like to add before I adjourn? Thank you for staying and listening to this, Krista, and for taking it back with you. And in that case, I'm going to adjourn this meeting of the special called meeting of the contact team.
Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thanks,
you all. Have a
everybody.
good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.